Hey, this is John Crotts with King Law. I wanted to talk to you today about long-term care planning. Uh, None of us really want to think about it, but we're not getting any younger, and the older we get, the more likely it is that one day we're going to need some help, whether that's in the home or possibly even in a facility one day. And sadly, some of us are going to end up in a nursing home one day, and it's not cheap. If you end up going into a nursing home, it can cost $8, $9, $10,000 a year or more. Assisted living, roughly half of that. So you want to really start thinking about that early on how you're going to pay for that, how you're going to plan for that, and try to put your family in the best situation as possible, because all the estate planning in the world isn't going to matter if you're going to end up having to spend everything you own on your health care before you pass away. But there's three main ways to pay for long-term care. The first is privately out of your pocket, if you have the means to do so. Some people kind of self-pay through the long-term care. But as I mentioned, it's super expensive, and those monthly costs can really eat away at the nest egg very quickly. The second way to pay for long-term care is through a long-term care insurance policy. Most people don't have those types of policies. We encourage people to begin looking when they approach late 50s, early 60s. We have some great partners that we work with who offer long-term care insurance. So that's something that you should consider if you're in that zone. You obviously don't want to start paying for that too quickly, or you're just wasting money on premiums. And you don't want to wait too late because the costs get higher the older you get. And if your health begins to deteriorate, you may be uninsurable. So long-term care insurance is another one to look at. And the third and final way to pay for long-term care or nursing home care is through Medicaid. And Medicaid is not to be confused with Medicare. Medicare, everyone gets when they turn 65, but Medicaid is insurance for the poor. In the context of nursing home planning, Medicaid is available for individuals who meet some very tight income and asset restrictions. So in order to be eligible for Medicaid, a single individual can have no more than $2,000 in the bank. A married couple can have a little bit more if there's still a healthy spouse living at home. But even in that case, the institutionalized spouse, their share of the assets cannot exceed the $2,000 limit. They will allow you to hang on to your house as long as you intend to return there if you ever become healthy enough to do so. They'll let you keep one vehicle and your tangible personal belongings. That's pretty much it, with a few other limited exceptions. So what happens is when someone ends up becoming in a situation where they are going into a nursing home, if they haven't planned for that, then they end up having to spend their money and writing those big checks. And oftentimes families will come and consult with us and say, what can we do to try to avoid having to spend everything that mom, dad, grandma own on the nursing home. While it would have been better if the family had come and seen us much earlier on, there are some things that we can still do to try to protect some assets. One thing that you have to be mindful of in the context of Medicaid and long-term care planning is the 5-year look-back rule. Medicaid will not allow you to simply give away your assets, just give all my money to my kids or sign over all of my property to my kids and then say, okay, I'm broke, I'm now eligible for Medicaid. It's not that simple. If you give anything away within 5 years of the date that you apply, then Medicaid is going to penalize you for that transfer. And they don't penalize you with a fine, but they penalize you with a delay in your eligibility, something known as a sanction penalty. So you have to be very careful giving away assets within the 5-year look back. So truly, you need a crystal ball to plan for all this. But there are some very basic things that you can do in order to hedge against the risks associated with long-term care planning. Another thing to keep in mind is upon the death of an individual who was receiving Medicaid benefits, Medicaid or the Department of Health and Human Services, who oversees Medicaid with the assistance of the Department of Social Services, they will file a claim against your estate seeking to be reimbursed for anything that they paid out during your life. This is typically where the home becomes in jeopardy. One of the myths about long-term care planning is that the nursing home takes the home, and that's not true. But the state can force the sale of the home when you die to recover what they've paid out for your benefit. So what can be done on the planning side to try to avoid losing everything due to long-term care? There are certain gifting strategies that we can take advantage of. The sooner the better with proactive planning. There are different types of trusts, irrevocable Medicaid asset protection trusts, special needs trusts, if we can begin a systematic gifting strategy that we think is going to provide more than 5 years of planning before you're going to actually be in a situation where you might need long-term care, then that's the most ideal. But even if not, even in a crisis, there are certain things that we can protect. Another common tool that we use in North Carolina is something called a ladybird deed, which is simply a deed that will allow you to retain all the rights to your property, but you go ahead and set it up so that the property will immediately transfer upon death to your children or your intended beneficiary. And that transaction does not violate the 5-year look back because of all the powers that you retain in and to the property. But immediately upon your death, that property will transfer to the grantee named in that deed, keeping that property out of your estate where it would be subject to that Medicaid claim. So it does provide the best of both worlds in providing for immediate eligibility while protecting the property from Medicaid recovery. So a very valuable tool in North Carolina is the ladybird deed. There is a way to protect other property, not the primary house, but other real estate through other deeds and other planning techniques. There's other recommended strategies, including purchasing a prepaid burial funeral plan, paying off debts, making improvements to the home, making the home handicap accessible, and doing some different things like that. There's Medicaid compliant annuities and much more. So if we could be of assistance to you in doing your long-term care planning and asset protection planning, we'd love to have a conversation with you. Give us a call at King Law and we'll go over these options and more based on your specific situation. Thank you.